From the kitchen of the cabin, it's the 5 Games for Doomsday review. Symphony No.9. There is something I learnt about gaming very soon after I started, and that is that the written word is wholly insufficient to convey the gaming experience. It can convey the prosaic steps to get the machine running, but gives you nothing of the timbre and rumble. Don't get me wrong here. The utilisation of language is a wonderful and necessary thing. The discovery and deployment of new words is a constant joy that can be partaken of every day. For instance, after a 10-second Google search, I have just found the word for inserting a word into another, as in abso-fucking-lutely. That is called tamesis. Language is elastic and athletic. The simple act of bolting syllables together can create the truly divine. But can words really convey what music does to you? Or sex? Read the Bad Sex in Fiction Awards to see how some of the greatest writers in the world stumble when translating the visceral into the intellectual. There are some things that language is just not good at. It fails at conveying how a game will feel, what kind of enjoyment you will experience. Rulebooks are manuals, instructions, cold and arid. Games, like music, are only fully realised in the playing. I'm sure that there are those who could be transported when reading a score or a rulebook, but I don't have that kind of imagination. The cold transcription of rules is such a small percentage of my game experience that if I were unshackled from ever reading rulebooks again, I would be eternally relieved. But read them I must, and when I read through the rules for Symphony No.9, I was utterly bemused as to how this was a game. You took cubes from a board, and basically that was it. But the distance between the rules and the endorphin-shooting experience of playing might be the largest I've ever seen in gaming. In Symphony No.9, players take on the role of upper-crust patrons, improving the cultural landscape by funding composers to create and perform works exclusively for the rich. Do not get me started on the elitism of classical music. The patrons do this by firstly commissioning the composers to create works and then putting up the money that will allow them to disseminate their music among a particular class of people. I said don't get me started. This brings in money for the patrons, which facilitates the constant commissioning of works which score points and is the way to win the game. This is conveyed mechanically by earning tokens that represent dedications from the composers that unlock that composer's endgame scoring conditions for the players that own those dedications. One dedication can be earned by only one player each round, and the more dedications from that composer, the more points their particular endgame scoring condition will yield. These dedications are earned by patron support. You support that composer by taking cubes from their fame track. Every cube is a representation of you putting them to work. The player with the most cubes of that colour at the end of the round wins the dedication. There are 3 rounds of cube gathering, but only 1 round is free. The other 2 cost escalating amounts, and so support costs. That's why you need to hold concerts of these works to recoup the money you spent commissioning them. When I read the rules of Symphony No.9, I was at a loss to see how the simple taking of cubes could translate into any sort of game, but this just highlights my singular lack of imagination. Symphony No.9 brandishes its simplicity with confidence and creates a gaming experience that is tense and rewarding and filled with biting interaction. There is constant guessing and second-guessing in this game. To be able to climb into the mind of the person across the table would be a real advantage, but as you're restrained by the eternal party pooper physics, you have to try and work out what your opponents are doing by crude deduction. The simple taking of a cube from the board changes the whole dynamic and economy of the game and can plummet people into a cascade of bad or good decisions. There are so many points in this game where the contemplation of future rounds bangs up against the needs of the present, and it is the most delicious pain to try and wend your way through the labyrinth of this game and satisfy both your future and immediate self. The key to this game is knowing when to abandon a certain path and take another in hope of future reward. This is not an insignificant undertaking, and it's great fun trying to do it as well as possible. After the agony of cube taking, the game introduces an element of group cooperation in the second phase, where all players contribute to the costs of putting on a concert. Composers are ranked in order of fame and placed on the gradated concert board reflecting that fame. one composer taking the highest ranking concert, 3 in the middle tier, and 2 at the bottom, potentially playing the grotty flea pit down the road. The players bid communally to see if there will be a top, middle or bottom concert. This is determined by the combined value of all players' bids. Players discuss what kind of concert they want, discrete money into their palms and bid. After the money is revealed, a concert is held, and patrons who hold cubes of those that performed receive money. The beauty of this blind bid is that trust can be bolstered or destroyed by the unfurling of fingers. Symphony No.9 is full of moments that allow players to try and read the others around the table, and the interactions that this encourages is the essence of good gaming. Symphony No.9 cranks out tension like Mozart cranked out sevenths, and all of it is the wonderful kind of tension that lights up the brain. There is no indulgence in this design, but expert efficiency that creates a huge experience from very little. I'm constantly astonished by the way games differ from how they read on the page, and in this, Symphony No.9 is one of the most astonishing games I've played. It boggles my mind how the action of picking up cubes can lead to such palpable tension around the table, but it truly does. I'm always full of admiration for design that harnesses this kind of simplicity, and I'm hugely envious that I don't possess it myself. Now, I'm fully aware that my words have been wholly insufficient in conveying the experience of playing Symphony No.9, so the only thing I can do is be unambiguously direct. Go out and find this game, play it, and overwork composers so you can bask in some financially earned reflected glory. Thank you for listening, and you can support this show by going to patreon.com/5G4D.